Hey everyone, how's it going? Happy Whiskey Wednesday to you guys, or no, is it a wonderful Whiskey Wednesday to you guys? Welcome to Midnight Hatter
Water
Live.
Wednesday.
Yeah, or Water Wednesday. Wonderful Water Wednesday. I hope you guys are having a good day, great week. This is Midnight Hatter Live, the variety stream where we, paint Gunpla and print miniatures and all kinds of good stuff that's primarily Gundam related. We're Gundam adjacent, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm of course your host Steven, and joining me as always is the thrilling Adam Blue. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Always good to do this. I always say that. That's like my line. It's like, it's the middle of the week. Work has been busy, but now I can just chill and talk shop. Love it.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to provide this little bit of a reprieve from you. I know that you dropped another video this morning over on Gundam Explained. For those of you who are not
Mhm.
subscribed, as always, down in the description below, Gundam Explained on YouTube and on Odyssey. Check them out. Adam puts together some wonderful lore videos and some amazing robot damashi reviews and things like that, obviously that's stuff that I'm not going to touch because I've gotten in trouble when I start talking Gundam lore.
Yeah, it's tough. I got to say, like, there's so many people out there like Kakarot and a few others. Well, not a lot, I guess I should say that, but they do really good. And it's like I want to be able to add that supplemental material, but sometimes I have to look, okay, how are these people that have been doing it delivering? And I'm looking at, because people in the comments will of course say, hey, you forgot this or that. But what I like about the comments are usually people are giving me additional information.
Yeah,
And that's kind of almost what I want out of this at the end of the day. I want to talk about lore, and then people are like, oh, but this and this. I'm like, oh, now I
yeah,
know.
it's
So
supplementary.
pretty
It's
fun.
it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean I loved your giant F91 video. That was
Mm.
awesome.
Yeah, that was a cool one. Yeah, and in the chat, Robert Autonomous, good to see you.
Yeah, Robert.
Zionic Shadow, yeah.
Oh, hey, Zionic Shadow, I'm always representing, man. And
Yeah.
don't forget over on Instagram, the Gunpla Bastards, Zionic Shadow. It was a Zeke New York takeover on Gunpla Bastards this Monday, which is still available over on
Yep.
Instagram. If you go to Gunpla Bastards, Zionic Shadow was on there. I need to talk to you about getting you because he mentioned that his Holy Grail, Gunpla kit is a Goof Custom, the Norris Packard 8th MS
Oh
Team Goof
yeah.
Custom. He said, not sure about it whether it was the high grade or the master grade. That's the guy. So I'm like, man, I've got a master grade that I built when I was like 13 that I've been trying to clean up, and I just
Oh,
put an LED in it, one of those wireless LEDs that I mentioned. So if you want that, hit me up and we'll talk about it. I'll send that your way. But yes, Ultronymous, Robert, good to see you guys. Kalos, good to see you as well in chat. Robert, of course, you are welcome to stream in your server as well. As always, the more the merrier. All are welcome here. Um, I did put out a video yesterday, which is a rare thing for me. It was a short video, but we've been building
nice
that
surprise.
that Hyzak video, or that Hyzak custom together here on
Yeah.
stream, and I wanted to mention the little techniques that I use to save money from time to time, which, it's like beam effect part pieces. What are you going to do with them? Well, I punch out holes in them and turn them into mono eyes because, it's either that or you spend like what, $25 on the Bandai like mono eye
Yeah.
effect part
LED set.
set.
I just can't believe, like, with all the tips and tricks I've always come across, this is the first time I've seen that. Like, not only do you use the effect part piece because it has that clearness to it, but using that I think it was an eraser
Oh yeah.
retractor or something with the circle,
Yep.
like even more of like, wow, that's just like brilliant.
Yeah, I've decided that there are actually two scales that I like to use. I like to use this little eraser for high grades. I should have mentioned on stream that I have a broken. This is a muddler that came with a. It came with a like a cocktail set, right? And it used to have a spoon attached to it. The spoon broke off, so I was like, what am I gonna do with this
Mm.
muddler? As it turns out, the diameter on this guy makes a perfect mono eye for a master grade, so the
Master.
1/100th scale. and it's,
Oh,
solid
that works out.
stainless steel. Just punch a little hole on there. I mean, you guys know how I am, waste not, want not, and make the most of your gunpla materials because, you know,
Yeah. I mean, it's like there's so much excess if you think about it. But once you grasp customizing, like then all that excess can be used for anything.
right. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and there's some awesome people on Instagram that I've seen that make like entire models out of nothing but runners, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I've
It's
tried to
crazy.
melt down runners in the past, and I'm probably gonna try to do it again now that I have myself a heat gun. I'll probably try and melt the runners in like a glass container, and we'll see how that goes. Stay tuned.
Mm,
Maybe we'll do it live. That'd be kind of a
that would be cool. That would be
But
cool.
today, I think that I mentioned, of course, that last week ooh, here we go. Last week our Patreon rewards went live, which include this little number here. Again, this is a prototype version. It's the Psycho Zaku from Gundam Thunderbolt. This is probably the most massive miniature I've ever made. I probably should have put it on a larger base now that I think about it.
Um. Oh, okay. I mean, but do you have problems with it standing?
No, no, the balance on it is perfect. It stands up just fine. I think the issue that I have with it is that it sits a little bit forward, so it kind of looks like it aims downward. So what I'm going to do
Oh.
after we've painted it is I'll probably snap it off of this base and kind of tilt it backwards a little bit so that it sits a little more flat.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and normally with a miniature, I'd like to mount it onto like a cork that I've got from something that, I can hold it. But for this, I'm not necessarily going to be painting the base today. I'm going to be just working on the body. So, I have plenty of places to grip the kit and not worry about getting my fingers dirty.
Yeah. That's a good call there. Are you gonna be wearing gloves?
I didn't prepare any, so I guess I won't be.
Nice. Nah, man, dirty it up. That's how it's supposed to
Yeah,
be.
might as
Like I
well.
love when I'm done and my fingers are like hardened with glue. It's like what?
Well, and that was, one of the benefits I would say to being a guitar player for so many years is that my left hand is so calloused and so hardened that there's nothing I can do to damage this hand. Unfortunately, my right hand is still soft as a baby, so I have sliced that open when cutting things off of sprues and such. Um, Pri Primarily tonight, I will be using, I mean, this is kind of a junky brush that I've got here, this black one with the white bristles. I think it came in like a Walgreens set, and I'll probably just be using that for base coating the entire the entire miniature. Um, this here is my size 0 workhorse. I use this brush for just about everything. It's got a slightly bent tip, but I'm kind of used to working with it now, so I've kind of, I can work with it, but I know that it's probably not ideal. And then we've got a 000 for the finer details. This is actually a really nice brush that I don't want to screw up.
Okay. And I guess, as we go, one main thing is hand painting versus airbrushing. Usually airbrushing turns out better, but we're working with a miniature here. So I'm curious if you come across any instances where it's like you have to watch how you are hand brushing,
True.
but you have that 000 you said, so that probably
See, and
helps.
I've thought about perhaps like for especially, I have an Ifrit Noct Mini that I 3D printed that I would love to paint as well. And I was thinking to myself, well, I could probably spray the purple because it's 95%, dark
Uh,
purple, right? Now this guy is actually primed in our Citadel Chaos Black Warhammer paints, which it's not technically a primer, but I use it as a primer and it works really well. So I
oh,
do want to invest in some of like the gray and white paints to see if we can get some variety of effects in there. But yeah,
mm,
it would be interesting to I think spray your base color down, especially for things like Zaku's that are 95% green or
okay.
a Hyakushiki. I would love to just spray that down in 100% gold and then kind of fill in the
Yeah.
details. But I've never
Right.
tried that. Um, Now,
Mm.
I do have with me, this is actually the first Gundam miniature that I ever printed and painted. It is a Zaku 2 F2 variant. Let me see if I can get the camera to focus in on him. Working on it. I think we're almost there. Trying to like use manual focus so that we don't have the going in and out
Oh, good call.
that we've had in the past.
But man, the mono eye and the viewfinder on the gun, that I bet it was that paint, right?
Oh
That
yeah. Here we go. We've got our black light and we can light him up. We've got the
wow.
mono eye, the tip of the rifle and the lens on the gun, as well as we
Oh
have
wow.
the thrusters on the back and a couple of thrusters on the lower skirts there that just get
Wow.
that just illuminate under black light, which is I think that's a really neat effect to have, especially on a mini.
Dude, it looks top tier. This looks like a premium, like painted mini. Even though that's what you're going for, that's exactly what you've got.
Yeah,
Well,
ideally.
in so the green on this, did you spray or did you hand paint?
This was all hand painted.
Looks
I
great.
mean, there's really not a whole lot to it because it's just green and black. I didn't do a
Yeah.
whole lot of extra detailing on him. But and one of the things that I didn't like about this, you can probably see that the pose on the 3D print was not ideal because you kind of have some clipping of the thigh through the front skirt. I have since
Yeah.
learned to not do that. So
Oh,
so
okay.
when you look at like this print, the skirt does hang down over the thigh the way it's supposed to, kind of naturally.
Okay. I see.
So,
Man, but that painted Zaku looked great. I
hey, thank you.
dang. I cannot wait to see what happens here.
Well, we definitely want to improve where we've started. But yeah, so one of the I
Oh,
guess oh, I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry. Gundam Hunter was asking a good question. Is it uh resin or
Oh,
plastic? And it's the resin.
yes.
That's I think what really helps with these smaller ones because I have the plastic 3D printer. There's no way I can do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have an Elegoo Mars 2, which is, a pretty small
Oh yeah.
build plate, but it's a resin printer that's I'd say pretty affordable for, the consumer market. And using this guy was actually printed. So I suppose I should start with this one was printed using the water washable, like water soluble resin, which, I didn't want to have to invest in a whole lot of high grade alcohol in order to rinse them and stuff like that. Now, something that I probably should have mentioned is that this water washable resin does not cure quite as easily as some other resins. And so now this is probably a year out. Can you see it? Okay, there we go. There's a crack in the backpack where the resin on the inside of the model didn't cure and it expanded because it got hot and split the
Oh,
model.
oh,
So that's something definitely to look out for. And, you know, again,
wow.
beginner mistake. I
Although yeah, not that noticeable. Anyway.
Yeah, it's battle damage. um,
Yeah, there you go.
oh yes, acetone to rinse Gundam Hunter, 100%. I just learned that recently, actually. And this guy was actually printed using a quick cure resin. I think it's an Elegoo brand quick cure resin. I will drop a link to that in the comments after the stream. But but yeah, the quick cure resin I've had some amazing success with, especially when rinsing with acetone as opposed to rinsing with alcohol.
Hmm.
Now, despite the fact that I spent a whole bunch of money on fancy resins to print this guy, I'm actually going to paint him using some cheap Walmart Apple Barrel brand white acrylic paint.
Okay. Now with the white, is that the what part is that like the trim
so
on
what
parts of the Psycho Zaku?
so what I'm actually using the white for is it's basically going to be the base of all of my paints because I do have my Vallejo model color paints out here. I could use this, kind of cherry red color, which, I'm going to end up using that for the highlights. But for the body color, I want to use some of this Liquitex acrylic ink that I've got. I've had it for a while and I've used it for, a couple of like paint projects, but basically all it is it's acrylic based, ink. You could put it in a pen, you could use it for like watercolor paintings. So all I'm doing is, let's move my water cup over here and see if I can get my paint tray in shot here. So I'm actually going to be creating these shades from scratch using some of these muted ink colors that I've got. And when you see the shade of this muted pink, you'll see why I want to use it for this particular mobile suit, because it does kind of have like a cranberry color to it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what ratio I'm going to go with, but we'll start with like, that was 4, 5, 7, 8 drops. So we'll start with that, see what we can get, and kind of base coat almost the entire mini, since that is going to be
Okay.
the main color. Although I'm not seeing much of the red come through.
Yeah.
I probably need to darken it up a bit with a bit of black. I probably should have made like a gray tone to start and then go from there.
And so your your plan with this is to have a base that is almost like off of the main color.
Yeah, yeah, I want it to be definitely darker than what you would expect the body color to be. We don't want
Okay.
it to be exactly that red because we're going to go through and paint some red highlights on top of it.
I
But
see.
we want it to be like a dark cranberry, black currant style red. And it's
Okay.
still pretty light, so I think we need more of that red tone to it. I probably added way too much white, but truth is, I'm gonna end up needing a lot of this to cover almost the entire body. So it's not a bad thing, I would say.
Now, how many drops was that? No, I'm joking. I
Yeah, no kidding. I still haven't quite gotten that tint that I'm looking for. I mean, you can
Hmm.
see it on stream. It's looking more gray than
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
It is slightly more red in person than it is on stream. I will say that
Ah,
much.
okay.
But it is still not quite where we want it to be. Wild
Okay.
Red Rider for my beloved for highlights. Ah, is that a Citadel color? I assume. Kalos.
And then Gundam Wing is saying, "Hey guys, well, hello. Yeah, let's look at that. Wild Red Rider. Let's see. Yeah, that's a Citadel paint.
Yeah, Citadel has the
Uh,
best paint color names. It's like Vallejo has orange and buff yellow. um, hey, what's
That's
going
pretty
on,
cool.
shirt dude? Good to see you in chat. I might have thinned this out a little too much, to be honest with you. That's
Hmm.
honestly the added benefit of using these inks to make my own shades, is that they also serve as a bit of thinner to the paint.
Okay, so that's a whole other aspect I don't understand too much yet. Is thinning it? I guess to get a good consistency for coverage
Yeah,
over a
yeah.
surface.
You don't want to obscure details with big old globs of color. Ooh, sorry, that was glass on glass there. So here we go. Now we're starting to get to the shade that I'm looking for, which is this right here.
Cool.
And
Senior Antonio just saying hello. Well, hello.
oh, hey, what's up, Tony? Good to see you, buddy. Actually, before I get started here, I do want to shout out Tony, because he's got me working on another 3D print project for the old birthday. I'm going to call it a birthday
Oh,
present. Is Tony sent me this guy, which is obviously the entry grade 1/144th scale Grandpappy Gundam, and I haven't built it yet, but The plan is to create a resin conversion kit based around this kit, which I think would be an
Mm.
awesome conversion because this is obviously a very affordable kit for most people. This would be
Yeah, you
a
pick it up at
great
Target.
base for like if you were going to 3D print some parts or even order some parts and convert it into something else. That would be the way to go.
Yeah, that is that's pretty cool because how easily available that kit is, and think of all the different options potentially you can convert it into different G's, like the G3, all that.
Oh yeah. Or
Because there's sometimes just minor differences.
yeah, yeah, and even like even some GM variants like the G line
Oh,
series
yeah.
um from 0081.
Yeah. Entry grade full armor Gundam conversion would be really cool from that T-shirt, dude. 15, yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. So we've gone in and started applying some of this base color, which to be honest is not sticking quite as well as I'd like. I'm not sure if you can even pick it up on camera to be honest, but it is kind of pooling in places which I don't like. I might have thinned it
Hmm.
a little too much with that ink.
Mm. Okay, so the thinning could make it where it doesn't evenly distribute itself,
Yeah, I mean it's
depending
definitely
on.
good
Okay,
for getting it to evenly distribute, but a little too much and then you start getting this effect where it's like,
I see.
it just kind of looks like liquid on the surface.
And Saint Kingdom, good to see you. Glad you've joined us.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Good to see you.
So, what then is the plan? Are you gonna try to make it a little thicker,
I
or
might have to because this is looking a little too sloppy. And if I try to get too much on the brush, obviously it starts to look a little gloppy. Um, see how that looks. I mean, it's definitely filling in the spaces, but it's definitely not going to dry as quickly as I'd like for us to, proceed on stream.
Hmm.
Now, as far as why I decided to 3D print this guy, I did want to sort of challenge myself with a 3D print that was obviously pretty exotic, and it's the most challenging that I've ever done as far as posing goes.
Yeah, all those parts, those small, thin parts. It's crazy coming from a PLA printer. To see what resin can do.
Yeah. And I really wanted to stretch that, push that boundary
Yeah,
because
see how far you can go. Yeah.
yeah, see what we can do to kind of make this guy as extravagant and ridiculous as possible. And the sub arms definitely help with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing that's cool about that is, after seeing your Zaku, like the previous one, all the details here that can be painted and how much more that can just make it just stand out. Yeah, because sometimes, hey, a standard Zaku is cool,
Yeah,
but when you get something like
absolutely.
this, there's so much more opportunity to like go all out. Yeah, especially the design of this um, from Thunderbolt is just awesome anyway. It just takes elements we already are familiar with in Gundam and it kind of mashes it together.
Yeah, Thunderbolt is kind of like that. Especially when you get into some of the later editions, like when you when you see like the Thunderbolt version of the Agai or the Thunderbolt version of
Mm.
the Zoc, those are like very extreme variants to what we see in the original series.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I've seen those, but yeah, I know the manga is still releasing new things that rile up people. Like I think they showed the Mark II in a
They did. They showed the
recent.
Mark II
Yeah,
and the Hyakushiki as because they've gotten
that's
to
cool.
that Zeta era.
Wow, yeah, it's crazy to think of the timeline that it's in. I always see these at local shops, the Thunderbolt mangas. I should be just picking them up.
Oh yeah,
Just never do.
absolutely. I definitely recommend the Thunderbolt mangas, even even as a UC lore junkie that gets bent out of
Yeah,
shape when things are not quite as they should be.
dude. That's exactly how I am. But at the same time, it's like I appreciate what Thunderbolt is doing, and so I can like it for being its own thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Now I am gonna be kind of sloppy with this first coat because, let's face it, I can't really see too well. You see this ridiculous DSLR in my face. I normally don't have this when I'm painting miniatures, but I think that it's necessary to get the best angles for what we're doing. And then, oh, and then of course on top of that, this is really just to kind of coat the main body parts in that dark, like Kalos said, it's a dark purplish gray, so it's not going to show up very well. Um, and we
And
want
that shirt dude saying Thunderbolt Gog was incredibly metal. Pun fully intended. I'm gonna have to check that one out.
yes, the oh man, the well, and
Ooh, yeah.
it's a Federation
I've seen.
nightmare because the amphibious suits in Thunderbolt can still wield weapons the way that regular mobile suits do, as
Mm,
opposed to having like the clawed hands.
yeah, yeah. I'm checking it out right now. Love the designs, man. Yeah, it makes it scary. But I remember that in the Thunderbolt, even the anime, how it had that scariness to it, almost like a horror movie where something is lurking,
Yeah.
and they don't humanize it, to kind of separate the feeling of, oh, this is just a normal dude, when you first meet the pilot. And I like how they humanize the psycho Zaku, Daryl.
Oh yeah.
They make, even though he's going through the horrors of war, they humanize him, and then the good guys, they make them like the horror movie monster.
Yeah, and even the animation has a very dark and there's a lot of cross hatching going on in the
Yeah,
in the shading, and there's a lot of things that make the animation look more like more in the vein of like a horror animation as opposed to what we're used to from Gundam, which is like bright colors and you know
yeah,
very hard edges and things like that.
yeah. And it's I've noticed this too watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but it's almost like lifting the art from the manga. Like I don't know how many anime are really just the manga animated, but there's just sometimes intention to take the manga art and make that real, or make that animate pop. Because watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, like a lot of that looks like art from a manga.
It does. They went out of their way, I would say, to make JoJo's look straight out of
Okay.
the manga. And another good example of that is One Punch Man.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Because I've watched the first few episodes of that, so that's kind of like the same thing where they mimic
yeah, yeah.
the manga.
Sometimes panel for panel, which is crazy.
That
And
is cool.
and I know that you can appreciate that, especially because both One Punch Man and JoJo's kind of come from the same family of, we said that they're both like love letters to like, Dragon Ball Z and Ninja Scroll and these types of like fight animes. I think Baki
Yeah.
the Grappler is another good example of a like fight anime that which I would recommend to you. If you're a fan of JoJo so far,
Hmm.
Adam, I would recommend that you check
Yeah.
out Baki the Grappler.
Okay.
It's not
Yeah,
quite
I'll
as
have to look
silly
that
as
up.
JoJo, but
Okay. Yeah, the thing with JoJo is I'm on the season that takes place in the late 90s, but it's like just as soon as I get to really like the characters, then you're introduced to new ones.
I know it's
But
it's a
yeah.
it's a bit of a rug pull
Yeah.
every
Because
few
I really
episodes.
just want to see more of that first season. I loved that first one where they just use Haman instead of or Haman. I don't know how they pronounce it instead of the stands.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Baki, I want to say I've seen that must be on a streaming service. And
I think it was recently added to Netflix, but
okay.
I am not 100% positive about that, so do not quote me.
Yeah, and Ultronimus is saying JoJo and One Punch Man are both very high quality art. It'd be an insult to not adapt as much as they could, as closely as they could. And you know what? That's a good point because I feel like a lot of times, especially in Hollywood, when they want to make a movie on something, it's like, and I can understand this. It's like they want to come from a different angle or different perspective or different art style. But I like the idea of how could you mimic the impact that frames of an animation did in live action? Like, and could you? Because Lion King apparently was the CGI version of the animation, but I think the problem with that was they made the CGI lions look real, and so it kind of lost that emotion. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah. I mean,
with that example,
there's a bit of uncanny valley there to it, right?
yeah.
Um, I love watching Meerkat Manor, but I don't expect any of the meerkats on Meerkat Manor to start singing Hakuna Matata, right?
And then Dr. Squiggums is saying read JoJo Part 7. It has that same feel in a sense. So that's pretty cool, but more fleshed out.
There you go.
And then I saw the new JoJo with his daughter on Netflix. I liked it. Yeah, because I guess the new season, yeah, came out just the other day, but I got to catch up first.
Yeah, I was gonna say you've how many seasons are you behind?
I'm in, I think it must be the third season. It's yeah, again in the late 90s where it's Josuke, I think is his name. Um and yeah, Senior Antonio is saying that you guys should check out the new Tekken anime. So I've seen that on Netflix, but haven't watched it yet.
Interesting. I have not seen that, so
Yeah, I haven't either. Oh, you know what? That shirt dude saying Doan's Island did the homage to keyframes very well, and that is a good point. That's
it's
something I
true.
liked about Doan's Island. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I hope that we see that from the Netflix Gundam as well. I probably need to let this guy dry before I start coating him with more paint. But yeah, that's something that I hope we see from the Netflix Gundam as well because they tried to do it with Cowboy Bebop, right? They had some keyframes from the animation that they tried to replicate in live action that didn't quite land. And I think
And
oh, go ahead.
well, I think you might have gotten to this, but from what I understand, I haven't seen the animation, is that they just changed a lot of the characters to the point to where, yes, something probably doesn't have as much of an impact.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is down to really just what is physically possible for actors to do versus what an anime character can do. Um,
Mm,
in particular, the clock tower fight between Vicious and Spike Spiegel stands out as an example of like, in the anime, it's a very quick cut. Everything kind of happens really quickly, and you end up with a gunfighter pointing a gun at a sword wielder, swordsman.
yeah. Oh, either one. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tight little sequence. But when you try to recreate that in live action, there's a lot of overly exaggerated, deliberate movements that kind of look, you know,
Mm,
choreographed, right? One of the credits to, I would say, Ray Park. I mean, I feel like Ray Park probably did not get enough credit for the choreographed work that he did in the Star Wars prequels because
oh,
those, even though obviously there's a bit of like theatrics to it, the choreographed
yeah.
fights in Star Wars: The Phantom Menace stand out as some of the best fights to me compared to
Yeah.
you know like I would say Crouching Tiger is another example of extremely well choreographed fight scenes, but so many fight scenes that you see in movies nowadays and TV shows for that matter, they're very like stiff and kind of like planned, you know?
Yeah, it's more like they have someone depth of field just right with the lens, and they say, "Hey, just move around, pretend you're hitting people," and then they just edit a bunch of scenes together. Whereas, yeah, I think your episode one reference makes a lot of sense because for a Western filmmaker, George Lucas had the camera pulled back, wide lens to see like a whole situation or the fight between Maul and Obi-Wan play out. And that's what we want. We want those long cuts
Right.
without, like you're saying, cutting to different things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean a lot of that comes down to CGI, because they want to CGI in the bad guys after the fact. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm standing on a sound stage throwing punches at the air, and then someone's gonna add somebody to it later that's gonna go flying.
Yeah.
Um, there's a bit of
But it's
that
weird.
to
Like
it.
if you,
Oh, I'm sorry.
well, no, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, I think it's weird though. If you get younger generations that grew up with like the Marvel films, they're gonna see that as like how things should look and pull off. And it just reminds me of, old like puppets to me look more realistic than CGI. But to
Yeah,
someone that's not used to puppets, they're gonna see a puppet and be like, "What is that doing there?"
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's the problem.
Oh man. See here. Bebop Netflix did do Jet surprisingly well, and that's my only compliment. I agree, Squigs. Jet was quite well cast, well acted. Jet was pretty sweet. I will give that. Um, yep, Saint
Oh,
Kingdom
there's
agrees.
Ian.
I'm sorry.
What's up, Ian?
Oh,
No,
hey
just
Ian,
Ian jumped
good
in.
to see you, bud. Saint Kingdom says love the way they filmed Duel of the Fates. Exactly. Duel of the Fates was just fire all
Yeah.
around. I mean, everybody
Yep.
kind of gets their heart racing as soon as they hear that dun 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 dun. Oh man, the build and the crescendo of the music to it was fantastic.
Yeah, and I remember like I was supposed to not like the prequels or something back in the early days of me being online a lot, but I also remember I had the VHS of episode 1 and I was watching it all the time, but while I was doing other things, but and yeah, it's weird how that works. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. It's as as much as I think honestly the prequels get a lot of flack just because of episode 2. And I know we're kind of getting off on a tangent here talking about Star Wars, but that's what this is for. We are a
Yeah.
variety show here, and this is the variety that you paid for.
Yep.
Um I think episode 2 was probably the one that was the weakest. And I think Adam, you disagree with me, is that correct?
What? Well, it's weird because I feel like each movie of the prequels are so different. Like I don't find one weaker than the other. Like I love episode 2 because it's like this mystery of finding out this big army was being made, but then kind of the thing of like, okay, what's this big army for? Oh, they're with us. But what does this mean? Like I love that implication. And then episode 3 to me is just a great like here is a Star Wars movie
Yeah.
because it's almost like you're getting all these different things you expect from Star Wars. And then episode 1 was just a cool, I don't know, story. Yeah, they didn't impact me like the originals did.
Right.
But it's funny that I can say that I enjoyed them way more than the sequels. Uh, yeah, it's just kind of weird. Even though the sequels look like competent films, but that's the thing, they look like it because they were crafted by artists, but the story wasn't like that. Pre-planning wasn't.
Yeah.
The rest of it was. Yeah, it reminds me too of a lot of times in movies, and it's when you watch a trailer for a movie and it looks awesome. When you watch the movie, it's nothing like it, or they showed all the scenes in the trailer. It's
I
some
do
things
hate
are
when that
made to be
happens.
marketed. Yeah.
Um
In going back on the and or were you gonna say something real quick?
no, I was going to say I 100% agree with Ian where it's 3-1-2 and Saint
Oh,
Kingdom says it too. 3-3-1-2. Squig
I
says
would.
3-2-1. That's interesting. I would love to see the defense of episode 2. And you can't
The
mention pod racing as as your
well,
reason
the
for not
only
ranking number 1.
What I would say is the reason I would probably pick 2 over 1 sometimes is because 2 is then kind of the up to date. You have Anakin and Obi-Wan, doing their thing, whereas the first one is the story of the little boy.
You're right.
And that's not as interesting, even though cool stuff happens, like the world building, even the special effects, and there's a lot of practical effects. It's still all really cool. But when it comes to like revisiting a Star Wars story, Episode 2 has more of that Star Wars stuff. Even the arena battle,
Yep, in
Geonosis,
Geonosis.
I love that whole thing. Um, I do think like there's one scene I'm not mad at it, but if they cut it, I think it would make it a better movie when he goes to the diner to get info. I, that seemed to have a place to me. I know what George Lucas was trying to do, a callback in an alien universe to like this 50s diner and the investigative part of Obi-Wan trying to get some info. But I wish they went about that a little more serious, because it almost seemed like then, and I forget his name, Jetster.
Uh,
Yeah, something like that.
Gaxter,
Jexter,
something like that.
something like that. He seemed almost like comic relief, and that shouldn't have been the case. They should have kept this person more of a mysterious figure that gives them that information
Well,
or
Adam, I
something.
was reliably
Dex.
informed that this was a movie about space wizards for children, and that comedy relief is part and parcel of what we're signed up for.
Hey, my whole thing, and I think George is usually spot on with this. The droids provide the comic relief.
Yes, 100%.
Anything else, and Jedi Sailor showed up, and she's like,
Hey,
"Well, I
what's up,
jumped
Sailor?
right in, and the first thing I hear is you guys talking Star Wars. Yeah, can't escape."
Yeah, we can't get away from
Um,
it. Well, it came up on my server as well today. Which again, if you have not joined both the Gundam Explained and Midnight Hatter Discord servers, links down in the description below. Um, yeah, I mean, kind of lost my train of thought there talking about prequels.
oh, yeah, Ian is saying, well, I'd argue that you have to look at the prequels as one complete story, similar to Infinity War and Endgame, whereas the original trilogy was more episodic. In Yeah, it's like the original trilogy. George realized he had something on his hands, so he wants to uniquely tie them all together. So then, with the prequels, he makes sure to do that from the start, and that's exactly what was missing from the sequels. There's none of that.
Yeah,
None of the tying it together.
true.
Um, so update on the paint. What are your feels so far with how this is going?
So we've got 2 coats of our, cranberry red down. It's still super wet, so I'm probably not gonna mess with it much more for a little while. But the idea,
But that looks good, even with just that layer.
yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that is really the color that I'm going for the main body tone, and then we're gonna go in with sort of that cherry red to create some highlights just on the edges of each of the skirts and kind of anywhere where we would expect light to be. Um,
That makes sense. It's almost like with this, and I don't know if it's because it's a miniature, you're applying techniques someone would do when they're painting on canvas.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's because when you're working with a miniature, it reminds me of the making of episode 1 when they were making the pod racers, and they were saying with I guess the bird droppings on it, you have to make them bigger than they normally would be, because on a miniature, then it just makes it look more realistic.
yeah, yeah, I
Um,
would say that for sure.
that's pretty neat.
Um, and basically what I'm going to do here is while that guy dries, this is how it would normally work on miniatures anyway, is this is the smaller variant of that same Psycho Zaku that does not have the beam bazooka and does not have the ridiculously large propellant tank attached to it. I figure I might as well go ahead and get started working on his base coat as well while the other one dries, and that way we can kind of batch paint them. But
That's cool.
insofar as like those early Star Wars movies, one of the things that I think I've noticed, and I think you'll probably agree with me on this, Adam, is that typically children like to watch movies about adults because they like to
Hmm.
imagine what they're going to be like as an adult. or they kind of like
I can see
they
that.
want to. It's like, okay, I want to be like Obi-Wan Kenobi when I grow up, kind of thing. Whereas adults tend to like watching movies about children because they like to reminisce about the things that they experienced when they were kids. And
Well, I must still be a kid because
same here.
hey, but it was a little out of focus
Oh,
on the
yeah, I appreciate that
oh,
heads up.
yeah, no problem. Um, no, you know what? That is interesting. I think I've always, as a kid, even as an adult, although I'm really a kid, I've never cared about kids in a show. Sometimes they're done right, but
Sometimes.
I think a lot of times, like they make kids act like adults when normally they wouldn't. You know, usually kids have a more of a dynamic reaction to things that sometimes don't make sense, but to them it does.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
bit of a pet peeve of mine when people write kids a little too advanced for their age.
yeah. And yeah, I guess that goes back to that episode 1, the main reason I feel like I would rather watch 2 at any given moment than 1 is because it doesn't have the younger Anakin, which I feel bad because I know he got a lot of crap for that later in life. Oh, Stranger Things. That's a good point. Jedi Sailor brought up Stranger Things, and I do know, like, I watched the first 2 seasons, started the 3rd, and I just fell off of it, but
Understandable.
I know my daughter likes it a lot. She's 13. She likes Stranger Things. Like, yeah, and those kids around that age, they like Stranger Things. Yeah.
Interesting. And that's especially peculiar considering that a lot of Stranger Things is a lot of like nostalgia bait. It's like, you know, what were things like back in the 70s and 80s. So it's interesting that that your daughter, who did not experience that
Yeah.
by a long stretch, is interested in that in media, right?
Yeah, she was pretty cool. She got into anime before me. And I tried to get her to watch Gundam, and she's just like, what is this? But I realized Gundam is very different than most anime. I mean, as far as Double Zeta tells us, it's not an anime.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, that's they straight up tell you to your face.
speaking of anime, I know we've been talking about that, movies and stuff. I liked Ghost in the Shell with Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, yeah. I remember you and I have talked about Ghost in the Shell on stream before. I didn't actually
Oh,
watch the
yeah.
Scarlett Johansson movie, but yeah, you said that it wasn't too bad.
No, I liked it a lot. In fact, I found the ending to be emotional once you realize what the characters had gone through and when they kind of were facing it together. Like it had minimal dialogue when that all kind of came together. And I don't know how similar it is to the anime because I haven't watched the anime or the original. I tried to watch a newer one on Netflix and it wasn't that great, but
Yeah, I
I might
watched
have.
all of the series. I never watched the movie
Huh.
Ghost in the Shell, but I watched the series, the standalone complex.
Yeah.
And I loved it. You know,
And,
I
oh, okay. I'm gonna have to check that out because I love the story and everything that's going on. It's like cyberpunk, but it talks about cybernetics and the future, and it has that. And I think it's all from the same thing, but like the Johnny Mnemonic. I don't know if you remember that movie with Keanu
oh
Reeves.
yeah.
It, it kind of has that vibe. I mean, stuff from Blade Runner. It's pretty cool.
Right,
All that
right.
stuff.
There's like a 6 degrees of Blade Runner that happens in all
Yeah,
sci-fi, right?
yeah. Which is really crazy. Again, a movie like Blade Runner is taking something that Star Wars did. It's making things look realistic.
Yep.
It's putting you in this world that nothing is being explained to you, but you're seeing it as you go. And I think that always works out. And also, they didn't make the characters be comic relief.
Right.
I don't think there was any in Blade Runner, but if there was, it would have been something on the side or,
I think
um,
Daryl Hannah's character was a little bit of comic relief, especially when she meets up with like the toy maker.
yeah, that's true. That's where it kind of gets a little, yeah, it's where it's almost like this creepy lightheartedness
Right.
kind of
You can tell that
start.
there's something going on under the surface where it's not 100% innocent, but there's like kind of a zaniness that's going on with his toys talking to each other and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, yeah, Blade Runner's awesome. I
Yeah.
can't say enough great things about Blade Runner.
And hot take, I don't think it is, but I think Blade Runner 2 is the best sequel to a movie. Now, I think Empire Strikes Back is an amazing sequel, but it's not like it took stuff from A New Hope and then expanded on it. Like I think Blade Runner 2 took something you didn't expect from Blade Runner 1 and made an entire story about it to where it affected all the characters. It has to do with Rachel.
Yep.
But I thought that was an excellent story. Like it's almost like why would you need a sequel to Blade Runner? And then what would you do? But what they did was like the best idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I would see I see that, and it really depends on your definition of sequel, right? Because if you consider a
Yeah.
sequel as just a just like an extension of the existing story, then yeah, I would probably disagree. Because I still think that Aliens is probably the best sequel. Although,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
you know,
Maybe I take back what I said. It's
it,
both started by Ridley Scott.
yeah,
Interesting.
which speaking of Ridley
Hmm.
Scott, a movie that I'm glad never got a sequel, was Gladiator, which I recently rewatched
Oh,
again. Ridley Scott classic. We're just having like a cinematic conversation while we
yeah.
paint minis here.
I
Um,
know.
but yeah, Ridley Scott is impressive the way that he can transition between, sci-fi to horror and then like period piece epic drama. It's like
Yeah.
because ultimately, and I think most people would agree with this, is that people don't change. Situations change, the times they are changing, but at
Yep.
at the end of the day, human nature doesn't change, whether it's replicant or not. um
Yeah.
and so
No, what was interesting is like Prometheus, for instance. Like when I first watched it, I was so mad, but I was obsessed. I was like, what did Ridley Scott do? Like, what? This is this has nothing. It's like and then it was like fun to, but it's almost like he expanded the world because with the new Aliens Fireteam game, now there's levels that are based around those early uh, xenomorph types, which have their own names. Which I'm still getting over. In fact, I with that new Predator movie, I was very much open to the new design of the Predator as another species than I was with what they did with the pathogen stuff in Prometheus, the white sort of alien thing.
yeah, fair enough. I think that there are definitely ways to handle lore expansion pieces that are superior to others. Um, and I think I mentioned this on my Discord server today. Is like one of the things I found annoying in Star Wars is, I didn't need to know what the Clone Wars were because it was just a
No,
throwaway
yeah,
line, right? It was like
yeah,
Obi-Wan Kenobi, you served with my father in the Clone Wars. I want that to be like a distant, don't even like, what? That sounds crazy. The
yeah.
Clone Wars? You mean to tell me that there were clones and now there's not and there were wars about it? Cool. Um Same goes
Yeah,
for,
that
and I
is.
think I've mentioned it before on stream, is like the Kessel Run from Solo. Is
Oh,
like
yeah,
I don't
that's
need to
another one.
know what the Kessel Run is. I just need to know, holy crap, the Millennium Falcon made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, which isn't even like astrophysically
A
correct.
thing. Yeah, yeah. I love that stuff. Yeah, that's again, that's something that makes a movie when they
Yeah, it's world building.
but the aliens thing is definitely the best call out. If any sequel to a movie upped the world building, it's aliens.
Oh
Like
yeah.
the fact that he kind of explained the reproductive process of the alien beyond the facehugger. Um, the nest of the queen, like that whole thing is just amazing. And see, that's funny because James Cameron, what was the other sequel? Um, I mean, Terminator 2, although it's a sequel of one of his movies, but again, you can see he knows what to do with a sequel.
Yeah, agreed.
Um,
It doesn't know what to do
to be
with
honest,
Avatar, but
yeah, so that's interesting because I didn't care for Avatar. I'm going to be honest,
no,
but
no, Avatar was Terrible. I
But
won't
is
say the
that
word that I
the
normally use to describe Avatar.
well, I wonder if that was, it's like no one else was making this. He makes it, and then his sequel ideas are going to come in. You know, like Aliens, T2. What would Avatar 2 be like, Um, yeah, I'm not super excited about it, but I do want to see it. But that's looking good, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, I figured I'd get a little tighter into everything and see how it's looking. Um, yeah, the fact that there's a whole Avatar universe planned is kind of frightening to me. I'm like, who greenlit
Yeah,
this?
I do like the military designs. It reminds me of like what was going on in Aliens. Sid Mead
Yep.
designs. So that's pretty. I wonder who designed stuff in Avatar too, or Avatar. I mean, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Oh, Jedi Sailor saying Shrek 2 was a good sequel too. Now, I don't know if that's a joke. I can't remember if I saw Shrek 2.
Oh come on,
um,
your kids are of perfect age to have enjoyed the entire Shrek series. So I refuse to believe that
I,
you have not watched all of the Shreks.
I probably have, but they were before I had kids. And what my kids they don't do the movie thing as much.
Interesting.
I guess if anything, my youngest likes the Moana
Oh
Disney movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
Moana's a good one. I was surprised at how well that turned out.
Yeah. And that's a funny thing. Like I try to ever since I don't know, after Lion King, there was like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, and then after that, I stopped watching those sappy movies. I think something happened to me, and I was like, "Nah, I don't want to cry. I don't want to cry."
Oh yeah.
Um, let's see what else is going on. Oh, Kalos Wolf, no joke. Shrek 2 had legitimately good world building. That's cool. Did James Cameron make that one too? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, good old James Cameron. Good for a world builder too.
Yeah, and that's funny thinking about it because that's what I like about things, the world. Like with Gundam, I like the world building aspect, especially UC. And so a lot of the movies I like it when they're giving me a world. I guess I'm starting to understand myself better. I like to have a world that doesn't feel fake, that makes you question things as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we were talking about this on the Discord server earlier, with the Gundam series coming out, which from Mercury, there's a bit of world building going on in that prologue that I think
Yeah.
is unique because typically when you have corporations represented in media, they're represented as like these big evil entities, and rightfully so. I'm not gonna carry water for Amazon anytime soon, but
Huh.
you know the way that they're represented in Witch from Mercury, or at least in the prologue, is you have this small corporation that's designing these mobile suits, and then the government comes in and basically kind of says, "No, you guys are done," and they're gonna take over everything. And
Yeah.
it's a very unique thing that I've not seen in most other movies or media in general. Can you think of another example of like, a government that comes in and kind of abuses a business the way that you see in Witch from Mercury?
Now, other than real life, no. Yeah, no movie has. No, that's I like that too. I love that they set that up in the prologue. Also, like they didn't have to.
No, they really
Um,
didn't. I mean, it was a very intentional choice to do that.
Another thing is I don't know if anyone in the chat has any more information about it, but in that SD Gundam Battle Alliance game, you're fighting a guy named Hermes Mercury, and I'm like, is this guy from which? Since their last names are Mercury in that also,
Right.
and it's
There's
like,
the
is
setup.
is there yeah, is there something going on I don't know about? Is this the gateway into the real Gundam MCU? It's called the Gundam Marvel Cinematic Universe.
The
But
GCU.
like, yeah. But yeah, I wonder if that was the intent because it seems like they've been doing that forever, having the cross AUs, but that can totally open them up to doing some sort of MCU thing.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Which they kind of do it by having it be real life, like the Gundam build fighters. People are just building Gunpla. But no.
Hermes Mercury, he basically has a double name for the Greek and Roman god. Exactly, Salo. That's
Yeah,
that's kind of the
I thought that
joke
was
about it
interesting.
is well, I guess what is it? Would it be Hephaestus Jupiter? Am I thinking the wrong god pairing? Um
Oh, I don't know. But yeah, even Ian is saying it's an in-game only character from my understanding. It's just way too much of a coincidence that this game, like just like a couple months before the release of The Witch from Mercury is a character, his last name is Mercury, just like the characters in the show.
yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Um
So like what if it is this character ends up showing up in the show and he's the one responsible for opening these breaks, is what they call them. Um
Now, how do you
yeah.
think that would tie into the levels, like the level 33? Um
Yeah, I don't know. Unless that's just their own way and like they meet up with Amuro and his new Gundam. He's like, well, we use psycho frames. And then they start talking about their technology. And Hero shows up. I don't know. And then he's like, you want to see your future? Amuro gets in. I don't know. There's some story there. I don't know.
Yeah, fortunately, well, neither of us is burdened with the task of making all of that make sense.
Yeah. Although if someone asked me to, I'd love to.
Yeah, yeah.
I just get a bunch of hate from uh, fans online about what your decisions are.
Zeus Jupiter.
You
Yes,
know,
thank you, Robert. Ares Mars. Hephaestus Vulcan. That was it. Well, we've been going for about an hour and I've only gotten like the
yeah,
base coat of our miniature done. I have not really even gotten into any of the fancy stuff that I'd like to do with him. So that's unfortunate. But I probably do have to
yeah,
wrap
that'll
up
be for
for the
next time.
evening to go and feed the infant. To
Yep,
feed the
you better
mini
do
hatter,
that.
if you will.
Your own miniature.
Yeah. Got to make sure to make that miniature grow up into a 1-1 scale human being.
Well, that's cool. Well, cool. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for everyone that showed up in the chat. That was a lot of fun
Yeah, thanks, gang.
talking about
Hopefully
this
you
stuff. Yeah.
enjoyed my sloppy base coat painting. I promise I will tidy it up before next week, and we'll have some decent looking miniatures to see. Um, I do want to get in there with some of those bright red highlights. I might even go,
Yeah.
far. It depends on we'll see what we can work with, but I'll be posting some finished versions of these guys on Instagram for you guys to preserve. Um, so yeah, if you're not following both Adam and I on Instagram, Gundam Explained at Gundam Explained and at Midnight Hatter. So, and I think I've got
Yeah.
links to those in the description down below.
Cool.
But yeah, thank you guys again so much for keeping the chat lively. We had a lot of fun talking movies and
Yeah.
Gundam and anime and all kinds of good stuff while just, hanging out and painting miniatures. Um, don't forget tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Central, we've got the Gundam Explained podcast. Adam, do you have any
Yep.
sneak previews about what we might be talking about tomorrow?
The only thing that I want to talk about tomorrow is I was trying to be an innocent troll on Twitter, and it turned into something funny. Those in the Discord might have saw it. Like I was making a collage of an actor from G Savior, and it got a little funny on Twitter. So I'll talk about that tomorrow. I'm trying to bring back G Savior. That's what I'm trying to do. Make those actors feel like there's this like diamond in the rough that they had no idea
Stop trying to
existed.
make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. That's
No,
cool.
no. G Savior is it's one of those things that I think deserves to be preserved, right?
I think
I,
so.
I think
Yeah.
that in an alternate universe, G Savior is like the Evil Dead of Gundam. where,
Yeah.
you've got this
Low
like
budget,
cult following.
appreciated. Yeah. I totally agree. I like how Zionic Shadow's like, stop.
Oh yeah. But
Right.
yeah, Zionic Shadow, definitely hit me up. We'll get you some goof customs to mess with, and we will definitely talk. Ian talking about Dragon Ball Evolution. No more Dragon Ball Evolution for sure. Um, but yeah, hopefully we'll get some more sweet stuff out for you to enjoy. I don't think I mentioned Gundam 5e at all this stream, which is unfortunate. I think next week would be an interesting week to dive a little bit further into like the behind the scenes stuff that I've been working on for Gundam 5e, because we're overdue for an update, and I think that
Yeah.
that Adam deserves to be cued into something if he's going to be participating in any
Oh yeah.
Gundam 5e one shots or maybe ongoing campaigns. We'll see. We'll see what you
Yeah.
guys are interested in. But yeah, until then, like I said, see you tomorrow, and hope you guys have a great rest of your evening, great rest of your week. Thank you, Adam, as always, for joining.
Not a problem.
Cheers.
Yep. See y'all.